You're in the right place, everyone. We're just giving everyone a few minutes to file into the meeting room. Ashley, Gina, Janet, Jerry, lots of good friends on the call, some new faces. Craig, thanks for joining us. Bob Niskanen, good afternoon. Tegan, good afternoon. Terry, nice. Awesome to see so many great friends. Fantastic. All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello and welcome. This is our 17th monthly webinar sponsored by the Citizen CPR Foundation. My name is David Hiltz, and I'll be serving as your host today. In addition, I am currently serving as the volunteer director for the Foundation's HEARTSafe Community Initiative. Interestingly, 1 year ago today, just about, we had Christopher Sun and Timothy Chan on to talk about optimized AED placement. And today's subject is going to be, a nice follow-up to that particular subject. So let's see if we can't have the gods of technology bless us. And there we go. So as a reminder, you're going to be muted during at least the initial portions of today's webinar. But I encourage you to use the chat function or the Q&A function to capture your comments, your questions, as well as your feedback. Your feedback is critically important to us. We intend for these webinars to be for you, and we hope that they are both enjoyable and informative. Also wanted to take the opportunity to extend heartfelt thanks on behalf of the Citizen CPR Foundation to our partners. Without their support, their generous support, this webinar and our other life-saving activities would not be possible. So we are very grateful to each and every one of them for their ongoing support. At the Citizen CPR Foundation, we understand three principal core values that form the basis of all of our efforts. And, we know that early CPR and rapid defibrillation saves lives. We also are firm believers that collaboration amongst the citizenry, professionals, communities, and organizations is absolutely essential if we're going to improve survival from sudden cardiac arrest. And then lastly, and very importantly, we understand that action based on best practices in science, education, and implementation improves outcomes. So I have a few announcements for you today, too, as a matter of fact. As a reminder, if you have something that you'd like for me to share with the audience, just let me know in advance, and I would be happy to give a shout out during this webinar. So our first announcement is you should know, I think that most of you are all aware, that World Restart Heart Day is coming up upon us on Saturday. And there's going to be a one and a half hour Global Resuscitation Alliance webinar this Saturday, where they're going to bring together several experts from around the globe to talk about key matters relating to sudden cardiac arrest. There'll be a keynote on maximizing results. They're going to feature a survival story. They're going to have some regional updates and more. Please look for a follow-up email message from us immediately following this webinar with registration information and additional details regarding this, this fantastic webinar scheduled for Saturday. And then, as you are all aware, the Cardiac Arrest Survival Summit is rapidly approaching, beginning on December 7th, running through the 10th in sunny, beautiful San Diego. This is going to be, you know, in person. And what can I say here? If you can be there, do whatever you can to get there. And we will look for you, hopefully there. So that will be that. And then I'm going to do a little something different after we're done with the webinar today, you know, in keeping with the season and the theme of, you know, Shocktober. I'm going to play a brief video. Some of you may not have seen this before. I think it's fantastic. It was done by the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. You know, CPR makes you undead, zombies, and so forth. So if you can, stay on at the conclusion of our webinar, and I will play that for you. You know, as you know, cardiac arrest is a communal issue, and one that requires us to approach it with a, you know, in a coordinated and integrated fashion to improve outcomes. So, you know, a goal without a plan is just a wish, right? And so, you know, we talk often about lofty goals within the sphere of sudden cardiac arrest. And I think we need to take an equal, if not greater amount of time to talk about how do we actually get there? How do we actually operationalize our strategies so that we can make a difference, really leveraging, you know, the proven interventions that have demonstrated capacity to improve survival. So we're going to talk today about 911 integrated AED registries and the relationship between telephone-guided CPR and telephone-guided use of automated external defibrillators with a true champion and pioneer that I've been fortunate enough to know for many years. So it's my absolute and delightful pleasure to introduce Richard Price, who is the founder of PulsePoint. And I'm going to actually drop the slides here, and we're going to begin an interactive discussion with Richard, because he truly comes to the table with, you know, a significant amount of experience. And we're gonna go through some what I think are going to be some fairly provocative questions. And again, I invite your participation. Please use the chat function to let us know what your thoughts are, so that when we get to that point, we can entertain your questions. So, Richard, thank you. Let's dive right into the subject here. So, you know, there are lots and lots of, I mean, lots of AED registries out there. Can you talk a little bit, you know, to our audience about their various purposes? Because it seems to me that certain registries serve kind of almost different purposes on occasion. So we'd love to hear from you, and it's like mic check time. Richard.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, David. And I appreciate the invitation to be here today. I appreciate everybody taking an hour out of their day to join us. And let me congratulate you on 17 webinars. no small task. I watch some of them to get a flavor for what you do, and you're doing a great job and serving an important role here. So thank you. So let me go to that question. I think that's a great place to start, because when we talk about registries, there really are a lot of different types of registries, even if you don't think about them that way. So if you think about I would think maybe the most common registry is this legislative registry, where people are told, you purchase an AED, you let the government agency know, you let county EMS know, whoever is responsible for AEDs in that jurisdiction know that you purchase an AED. Kind of the oldest type of registry, where laws were passed that said you had to register your AEDs with the community. And these AEDs, I find, are sort of serving the least important role. People maybe would fill out a form and fax it in, or maybe they'd fill out an email form, and these would come into an entity. They might get put in a paper file. Maybe they would get put into an Excel spreadsheet, but that was on one person's desk. They didn't really make those AEDs available for anything other than this, meeting the requirements of the law. So I think about that as just this legislative registry, least useful in my opinion. I've used them many times to grow them into something more productive, but in their basic form, just kind of meeting the letter of the law. Another type of registry is these regulatory registries, and sort of FDA registries that the manufacturers might keep. These are more important because they're used for maybe recall notices, or maybe software updates, things like that, probably recall being the most important of those. But again, the manufacturers were required to do this. And again, it's kind of a regulatory purpose. They don't really help in the case of an emergency, other than to help the devices work, help the devices be ready to some extent. But again, not that valuable to, say, a dispatch center. And then the other type of registry that is very common, very important, is the maintenance registries. So these might be companies that are maintaining the AEDs. So they know where all their customers' devices are. They're making sure that the consumables are not expired. They're inspecting them. They're making sure that they're ready to go. Very important function of an AED registry. But the kind of registry that I want to talk about, the kind of registry that I think about all the time, is an AED or is a registry that puts AEDs in motion during an emergency. And that's a different type of registry. It has different elements to it. It has different interfaces to it. And it's the one that I think is the most valuable. And that's where, I hope that our conversation focuses today. Those other ones are a lot more common. They serve their role, but they're not what gets AEDs onto patients' chests. And that's what a 911 connected, or whatever term you want to use, but they are they're dispatch accessible AEDs, and they're used during call taking. So, David, that's
my cue.
That's your cue. I mean, those
my
are because you said you were looking for the different types of registries, and I only sort of think about one, but trying to answer your question, as people think about registries, they're not always thinking about the registry that I'm talking about here.
So three, we're kind of looking at three. One is I told you to, right?
Yeah.
I told you to do this, right? We're not really sure what we're going to do with the information, but we told you had to do it. And I remember these, right? Where, people would fill out forms, and they'd send them off to a central collection agency, and they would send them off to the next central collection agency, large filing cabinet somewhere, right? But you put a check mark in the proverbial check box, right? Ta-da,
Yep.
we're done, right? The legislative registry, if I may. Then there's the very important second type of registry, which supports, keeping AEDs in a perpetual state of readiness, knowing that this is an enormous issue, within the sphere of early defibrillation, that the defibrillators are, in a state of readiness and can do what they were intended to do. Very important, right? But the downside of, the second type is that it really doesn't do much to improve bystander AED utilization, right? And then we look at the third type, and it's interesting that we're even struggling to find a common vernacular around what we're calling it, right? Is it a 911 integrated AED registry? That's where I tend to go because it kind of says what it is. It's integrated with the 911 system, whether that be your central 911 call center, or it's integrated into your local public safety answering point. But clearly, I see examples 2 and 3 being kind of the most critical. And yes, we want AEDs to be in a state of readiness, but we also want people to use them. Innovations are great. And, I think AEDs are true examples of innovation, but innovations don't do much unless people have access to them and they're utilized, right? And so we're spending a lot of time as a resuscitation community talking about telephone guided CPR, TCPR, and it would occur to me that, kind of concomitantly, we should be thinking about telephone guided AED utilization, right? Which would include, alerting an emergency telecommunicator or a dispatcher that, oh, this call is coming in with cardiac arrest at this location, and geez, I see on my screen here, right, that there's an AED 50 yards away from where this incident has occurred. And, how do I, as an emergency telecommunicator, how does this get integrated into my approach to managing this emergency by phone prior to the arrival of additional help? So I think we're spot on here in that, we can do a significant amount of good here and do it well if we focus on, not only telephone guided CPR, but also the integration of telephone guided use of an automated external defibrillator. So spot on. So let me do a follow-up question here, because you already talked about their various purposes, and I think outside of the legislative I told you to, the other examples definitely serve a very, very valuable but different purpose. Can you tell me a little bit about, so again, it's like rubber has to hit the road at some point here, right? And so we talk about Aed registries, and I'll speak from my own experience in my own community. There's been kind of a long-standing effort to develop an Aed registry, and yes, it was just a list at one point in time. It was, put in the newspaper periodically. It was posted on bulletin boards around the community, and it was really just a list of locations and AEDs, right? And then, because of the concern and efforts of multiple parties in my own community, we took that list and, ultimately developed, kind of a Google map resource, which has, been kind of manually integrated into the CAD system. the computer assisted dispatch system for my community. But I got to think that, well, I've got a couple of thoughts here, right? There's got to be an easier way to do this, right? This is hard work. Registries are never complete, right? They're never up to date. I mean, the moment you click enter and you say I'm done, it's already out of date, right? And then, how can we, I'm always looking for this angle, like how can we enlist assistance from the citizenry? Because I think that does a lot, right? And that if we engage the citizenry in helping us to develop and maintain, an active 911 integrated AED registry, we can accomplish a number of things. Where we've got a lot of hands doing the work, right? And I think there are some unintended consequences, or intended ones for that matter, where we get a couple of other benefits. Like, I have to think that a citizen armed with a cell phone who's going out hunting for AEDs, or for that matter, just bumps into one, but they're sensitized to the need for identifying available AEDs, snapping a picture of that, and, forwarding it on for inclusion in the registry. That's got to do a lot to sensitize the public about the importance of AEDs. And by enlisting their help, they're becoming more and more engaged in the idea of, it's my, how shall I say, it's my civic duty and moral obligation to come to the aid of a fellow citizen during their ultimate time of need. So I'm going to push it back to you at this point, Richard, and ask for you to comment further.
Yeah, David, there's a lot there. So let me boil it down to one of the basic things we're trying to accomplish is we want dispatchers to inform callers of AED locations during call processing, not ask if there's an AED nearby. I mean, that's the fundamental difference. Like today, most of the time, the dispatchers are, when they know they're in an unconscious, unresponsive situation, they're asking if there's an AED nearby, if there's an AED somebody can get at the scene, and we're trying to switch that to there are two AEDs in that building that you're in. Is there someone that you can send to this location to get it? So that's the basic thing we're trying to accomplish. And I think it's good to maybe just take a minute to talk about the level of the problem. We all agree that AEDs can make a significant difference during a cardiac arrest, especially when they're applied early. And if you look at the current CARES report, the 2020 CARES report that was released recently, it shows that bystanders sourced an AED prior to EMS arriving less than 6% of the time. That was 127,000 or so cardiac arrests that they looked at. It's not all the cardiac arrests that occurred, but it's very representative of the total. So we're probably seeing AEDs applied less than 6% of the time. And I think that we've done a very good job encouraging AED use and encouraging AED purchases. As a fire chief, I talk to the school boards, I talk to Chamber of Commerce, I talk to the service groups. I encouraged their purchase and their placement in the community. But I didn't really think about that other piece is like how to get them out of the cabinet. And I think that's where we have the greatest opportunity. And I think just like you mentioned telephone CPR, where dispatchers are giving CPR instructions while the crews are traveling to the scene. We know that is going to improve outcomes. We're not going to wait till the first responders arrive before CPR begins. And I think there's a great parallel here. Just like telephone CPR, if we can have those telecommunicators tell the caller, tell the people who are on scene where those nearby devices are, we're going to get them deployed more often. So that's the goal here. And I think, your effort is good. trying to go out, find all the AEDs. It's sort of fundamental of an AED registry that's going to be used in the dispatch center to know where the AEDs are. But what we're trying to do is get those AED locations in front of the dispatchers in the software that they're already using, right? So they're not having to, go out and look at a Google map or a separate list, or even, point of interest information within a particular address record. We want to show it, for example, inside the protocol, while they're maybe going through a ProQA, a priority dispatch protocol, that the protocol knows that there's AEDs nearby. It's a connected product where, like, priority dispatch is one of our interfaces where they can reach out to us and see if there's nearby AEDs, and then they modify the protocol inside a screen that the dispatchers used to working on. So if there's an AED nearby, they're given certain instructions. If there's not an AED nearby, they're given slightly different, language to use. Like, that's one example. I could show you that, what maybe that looks like. Or inside the CAD screen, where they're seeing inside their CAD screen, right on their CAD map, a layer that they can turn on, just like they're turning on traffic cameras or a weather layer or a traffic layer. If this is a cardiac arrest incident, they can turn on AEDs and see it in relationship, to that caller's location. Those kinds of examples where you've got your AEDs collected, where they are in your community, but how they're presented to the dispatcher, it's in screens, in workflows that they're already familiar with. And that's sort of key to, I think, kind of finishing the work that you were doing. It's that delivery of the information in a very usable form in regular workflows and within products they're familiar with, and with interfaces built by those vendors who are just modifying their own products to take advantage of knowing where those AEDs are located.
Yeah, fascinating. An excellent point. I'm gonna be a little bit risky here, and because we're doing pretty well on time. Jerry Overton had registered for our webcast this afternoon. Jerry, are you on? And would you care to comment from a dispatch software perspective, in the International Academies of Emergency Medical Dispatch? Jerry, are you on? And would you be willing to comment? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I am on. And as first off, and second, I totally agree with everything you said. But when you talk about software, that is the priority dispatch side, not the academy side. I'm
Right,
not.
right.
Yeah, I'm not. I know that our PDC, which is here in the same building, PDC has been working with Pulse Point, and we're excited with that relationship. But as far as me commenting on software, that is way beyond my technical capabilities. You've got the experts sitting right there beside you on your screen as far as our interfaces are concerned. But yes, we're definitely working on that.
Yeah, David, let me comment on that. Thank you, Jerry. One of the beauties of the priority dispatch interface is, it is the interface, is the UI, is the software, but having the academy involved in determining what is the correct action to take when there's a nearby AED. That's very, very key here is so there's an AED there. What do you say? What is the exact language? How far would you send somebody? What's the range of AEDs that we would show? There's a lot of work between the academy and the PDC side to make this effective. And you can sort of see, can I throw up a PDC screen?
Yeah,
David, while we're having this
absolutely.
conversation? Let me just,
please.
I have one here that I was ready to show if this came up, and I can show maybe a CAD one as well. Let me see, I want that in full screen. Okay, so here's an example. This is for those who know Priority Dispatch, this is a 91 screen. And in this case, when the protocol is running, it sees that there's nearby AEDs. So pulse points on the back end, the connected registry, there's an API and interface that's looking at the address of the incident and then, queuing up AEDs for this screen. And then Priority Dispatch is providing them in their interface to the dispatcher. So up on that top right where it says nearby AEDs, it found 2 nearby AEDs. We order that list from the nearest to the farthest. And the dispatcher knows, okay, I have a patient that's in LA Fitness, for example, and they can tell the caller, there's an AED inside the gym near the pool on the back wall. Can you send someone for that? And you just sort of see that the difference between that and saying, hey, can you see if there's an AED there? Can you ask somebody if there's an AED in that gym? I mean, that affirmative nature of being able to direct callers to the AED location. And there's a lot of other information that's available that can be provided as well. But this is just like a simple example where if you have Priority Dispatch and their software's in, I don't know, 70% of dispatch centers or something, you're only seeing these AEDs when you're in a protocol that requires AEDs. You're only seeing the nearby AEDs. You're not seeing, all the AEDs in the community, or you're sorting through a list. You're seeing the ones that are near the incident. You're getting just the key information that you need. Your workflow is not changing. If there weren't AEDs nearby, you would be in the same screen, but it would be giving you other instructions to send somebody, ask somebody, if there's an AED at somebody's side, making sure it gets in use. So it's a combination of Priority Dispatch interface, the academy sort of setting the flow of how this is going to work most efficiently. And then it's a registry on the back end that you're making a connection to. So it's taking the work that's like you did, David, that's fundamental. You have to know where the AEDs are. But when you're putting them in front of dispatchers, what we find is it raises the importance of the AEDs. When people are just registering AEDs and they're going in the file or they're getting added to the Excel spreadsheet or whatever you're doing with them, nobody really cares. It's not important to the organization in many cases. But when you're providing them to the dispatchers, that information is accurate, that those AEDs are there, that they're ready to go, that it's complete, it raises the importance and it makes the whole system we're talking about here more effective, but because it creates this important nexus in the dispatch center. So I just hope that you can see like this basic difference of how valuable it is. And let me just show you one more. Let me just go to the next screen. Like this is just a different type of interface. So that was Priority Dispatch. It's an EMD protocol driven. This is a CAD system. This is Rapid Deploy, their map. And in this case, it's slightly different. Here's the caller's location. You see the caller's location, and then it's showing the AEDs that are near the caller, and the dispatcher can. This is the dispatcher's map that they're using for traffic cameras, weather, whatever else they can turn on. So again, they're not like in an AED registry. They're not in Pulse Point. They're just in the screen that they normally use and are familiar with. And you can see the data elements here, things like an access code. So if this is a locked cabinet, sometimes in public places like parks and stuff, AEDs have access code. So the dispatcher has that access code readily available. Co-located items. So in our registry, we show everything that is also stored with that AED. So if there's bleeding control kit there, or there's Narcan, or there's epinephrine, if there's a pitcher, this type of information is available to the dispatcher. So those are like two good examples of just basically the dispatcher is seeing the screens that they're familiar with, that they normally work with. You're not training them on something new. You're not maintaining proficiency. These are inside the products that the dispatchers are using. Behind the scenes, we're feeding them those AEDs. That registry has to be complete. It has to be accurate. That's sort of the other side of this story. But you can see that if you've built the registry and you have these products, so if you use Rapid Deploy Radius, you already have this capability. So in many cases, there's not much to do other than to build your registry, which is already connected to these CAD products. And again, the whole purpose here is for dispatchers to inform callers of AED locations, not ask them if there's AEDs nearby. That's the goal.
Yeah, way cool, Richard. The visuals and additional information was extremely useful. Now, I understand that Jerry would like another opportunity to say a few words. So could we enable Jerry to comment, please, Krista?
Very few words, because Richard's doing a superb job, and I want him to keep going. The only thing I would like to add, the Academy actually makes the protocols that PDC software implements. And so these are our responsibility, what you're looking at on this card. And the only point I'd like to make is that this is absolutely excellent because of the fact that we do need that distance. One of the concerns that we have had at the Academy is what happens if it's only a single rescuer and the time it takes hands-off chest. And the hands-off chest time becomes key here because, as we all know, we're going to lose coronary perfusion pressure. And so being able to see what Richard has done and the number of yards away, it is an AED within less than 100 yards, becomes very key to us as far as a decision-making point, as far as the protocol structure is concerned, as to whether we bring up hands-off chest on a single rescuer or not. That's the only point I want to make. But Richard's exactly right.
Thank you, Jerry, and excellent, well done, Richard. So it occurs to me that as with most things in resuscitation, we know something, we're onto something, but there's more to do and more to discover, right? And so with that in mind, Richard, before we get into, and I anticipate some healthy question and answers coming up here based on what I've seen in the chat area. Can you briefly share with us, some resources that can be used in kind of mobilizing the citizenry and establishing an AED registry, a 911 integrated registry, please?
Okay, yeah, for sure. So like you said, we are definitely interested in using the citizens to help build and maintain and surveil the registry. So actually, I'm gonna skip a few slides here, David, and just kind of go to a piece here. So what? Let me just do a little bit of introduction on PulsePoint real quick. So I think it's important here.
Please.
So PulsePoint is a 501c3 public nonprofit foundation with a mission to help public safety agencies improve their sudden cardiac arrest survival rates. So that's what we do. We have sort of two directions that we go. We have the Respond app. A lot of people know PulsePoint, about PulsePoint Respond, but that's about 50% of the work that we do. The other 50% that we do is around this 911 connected registry and tools to build the registry. Everything that PulsePoint provides with the registry is provided at no cost. So our apps, our interfaces, our registries, our vendor interfaces, we pay for everything, and dispatch centers, cities, They pay nothing to use any of these tools. So I just want that introduction. As you see these tools, know that they're all provided at no cost by the foundation. So how a registry is typically built, we have a couple different methods. We have apps. So this is PulsePoint AED. It's free in the App Store. It's available on iOS and Android platforms. Phone versions and tablet versions, whatever your preference is. And we also have, browser versions. So here's, desktop browser version that you could build the AED registry in as well. So here's just the basic of the app. Let me just show you the screens and I'll talk to you about how we engage the community. So if you were to download PulsePoint AED, and I encourage you to do it, just download it and add one AED. Just sort of see how simple it is. And if you have priority dispatch, if you have ProQA, if you're using Paramount, if you're using CAD vendor that we have an interface to, you add an AED, it shows on the screen. It's as simple as that. And maybe it's not complete, but you've added 10 this week and 20 and 30. And as your registry gets more complete, it's just providing more information back to the dispatch center. So it is something you're always working on. But you can see this screen is basic location detail. Most of this we enter for you. When you start, it'll say, where are you? You're adding an AED where, and you start to type maybe, Starbucks. As soon as you hit an S, we look around and we go, oh, here's a couple of businesses that start with S that are right next to you. You hit a T, we say, okay, you're at Starbucks. And you pick, oh yeah, I'm at Starbucks at this location. And then it fills in all this information for you. It grabs the business hours. It tells us where you're at. You position the pin exactly where that AED is located. Now, this is an example of how a regulatory or a legislative registry, it doesn't care about this kind of information. You might just say it's at this school, but we care about if it's in the nurse's office, if it's in the gymnasium, we care precisely where it's located. So here you would position the pin where it's located. Since we're going to direct somebody to it, many times we're going to show them a picture of that AED as they're going to it. You can add pictures of the AED. Co-located items we talked about, like bleeding control kits and epinephrine, naloxone, all the details about the AED. So if the agency wants to send reminder notices and things, let's see. Not seeing that, maybe it's a little bit slow.
What's up now?
Okay, all right, so here, how to report an issue. So this is another way that members of the community, if they see an AED and it's not ready, they can report that it's not ready, that business has been closed, or those types of things. It's shown in the wrong location. They can report it. This goes directly to the agency. Map views, filters to be able to see certain types of AEDs, certain locations. If you're trying to complete your registry and you want to see which ones are missing images or which ones haven't been approved yet. So AEDs are in our system, they're entered by the public in a pending state. So it notifies the community that there's the agency that there's a device there. Then they inspect it and then they move it to an approved status. And only those are recommended to dispatchers. And then the entire record can be managed right on a mobile device. So you don't need to have it on a computer. This is a hosted registry. So on your phone, on your iPad, or on a desktop. And this is one way to enter an AED. A lot of AED registry work is done in the field. But also you can do it, this is aed.new. You can just go to aed.new, add it here, very similar interface. Agencies can even put this form on their website, and depending on the location of that AED, it sticks it in your local registry. So if you're doing a small number, a lot of times a business or something might just use aed.new to add it. So that's like how the registry gets built. Those are some basic tools to do that. But then we put a lot of community messaging and marketing behind that. So right now is Sudden Cardiac Awareness Month. We have a big AED contest going. So people add AEDs, again, trying to get the local registries complete. So people are in a contest this month. Everybody who adds an AED, every time they add one, they're They have a chance to win a $500 Amazon gift card. The agency that adds the most, we're giving them $5,000 towards AED purchases. So we come behind the registry and fund lots of other aspects. Like this is a billboard. We have billboard contracts that allow us to put these in communities, and it shows the number of AEDs that are registered in that community. People see this and they know, hey, we're showing 893 AEDs to our dispatchers. If they add another one, this changes to 894. This is part of our engagement campaign with the community. Every type of marketing collateral, outreach collateral possible, posters, banners, giveaways, we provide to the agency. We customize them with their logos. There's LA County there on the right, Washington, DC, Office of Unified Communications. We develop this material for the agencies and provide it back to them at no cost so they can market this concept to their communities. These are some videos, training videos on how to use the app, explanation videos to the community of why they're building the registries. And there's more resources there. So we agree, David, that the community plays a big role, not only because does that help do this distributed work, but it helps people know where AEDs are. It helps them think about them. I can tell you with my family, I have a daughter where, if we're anywhere, because in where I live, you're not going to find an AED that's missing, right? There's great surveillance here. But as we go to places, go through airports and we're on vacation, it's like a treasure to find an AED that's not in the registry, take a great picture, do a great description. So she's much more aware of AEDs and what they do and where they are. So I think this is an important aspect, again, trying to get AEDs used by the community. We have a lot of campaigns just around that. So it has multiple purposes, I think.
Wow, right, Richard? Thank you. I mean, I think about, again, I have to draw from my own experience. And, I'm hard pressed to find a reason why we shouldn't be leveraging this opportunity and these resources to help improve the quality of the registry that we already have in place in our community. So this information has been extraordinarily beneficial for me. And, every day I'm learning more. I think as adults, we all understand that there's so much more to learn, despite what we've already, managed to kind of put into the cerebrum. With that said, if you wouldn't mind dropping your slides, I think we've got some very good questions and we want to speak with our audience. So let's see. I think Janet had an interesting question. Janet, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce your question to Richard, please. Don't forget to unmute, Janet.
There we go. I couldn't find the button.
Hi, Janet.
Hi. We just got done distributing AEDs to all of our law enforcement officers in the state. We put an AED in every vehicle. So we've got a little over 2,100 devices out. And
fantastic.
Yeah. And so we're working on the dispatch piece. And so that's some of the officers hear the calls go out over the 911 when they're dispatching the EMS and they just self-dispatch. Others are being dispatched as a protocol with the EMS agencies. But it becomes we've got lots of, I saw somebody else's comment that we've got old CAD systems. And so they don't integrate really well with Pulse Point, and we still have communities that don't do any kind of EMD at all. And so trying to get these officers out there as quickly as we can, because we're not, are there some tips you have about how we can help facilitate that?
Yeah, I think on that, because we do this with a lot of police agencies. On the other side of the house is Pulse Point Respond, where we have CAD interfaces, real-time CAD interfaces in like 4,200 cities. And in those cases, we are looking for a cardiac arrest incident type. So it's not always EMD driven. Sometimes that's call type driven, nature code driven. We have various ways that we know that the dispatcher has determined it to be cardiac arrest. We have lots of years of experience doing that. And then we use our other app, Pulse Point Respond, to notify sort of two sides. One is the public side, you're shopping at Walmart, you get that notification. But there's also a professional version of that called Verified Responder that only goes to police officers, firefighters, both on duty and off duty. Sometimes that's medical staff from the local hospitals. It's the professional side, and they are notified in real time of cardiac arrest. So a little bit outside the scope of this presentation, but that product is designed to notify those police officers of cardiac arrest at the same time that EMS is being dispatched. And even better, if those officers are taking AEDs home, then we also will notify them at home for their neighbors having cardiac arrests.
Right.
So that's something that I think maybe we already are talking to you about a little bit, but we definitely can sort of look at the solution there. Now, the registry, it's hard with registries in mobile devices. So the AEDs that are in the police cars, we track the police officers to tell them that they're near a cardiac arrest, not so much the AED. The registries are more for fixed locations of where the AEDs are. So we use both products to cover both scenarios, but not to spend too much time on that, Janet, but you and I definitely could talk that through further, and I could give you examples of where we're doing that.
Sure.
Talk about that in more detail. And hey, thank you for your great work on that.
Fantastic, and always a pleasure to have Janet on. I was also intrigued, Rich, with the ability to, because we're thinking of kind of a lot of these AED locations as being kind of life-saving stations, right? And being able to account for other life-saving equipment, whether it be, bleeding control, epinephrine auto-injectors, and the whatnot. Actually recently saw a fire extinguisher and an outdoor purpose-built kind of enclosure. So fascinating. We've got a couple more minutes for a few more questions. Krista, if you wouldn't mind helping us out in selecting, why don't we hear from Gina Lambert, who lives in a rural community with dated CAD. Gina, you want to unmute and speak with us? Good afternoon.
Hi, Gina.
Don't forget to unmute, Gina.
Whoops, give me the chat there. We are trying to find our mic.
Hey, we can hear you, Gina.
We can hear you, Gina.
Oh, there we go.
We found our mic.
There you are.
So we live in a rural community, Gunnison, Colorado, and we have a very antiquated CAD. We doubt we have any sort of technological interfaces that would work together. So how does a community like us enable our dispatch to, how do we start this? We don't know where all the AEDs are. Dispatch doesn't have that information. Where do we start? We are at square one without technology or interfaces to support it at this time. So how would someone like us become a HeartSmart community?
Okay, so I think that it's a larger question about becoming a HeartSmart community, and David could address that, but I'll just kind of address the registry piece of that, if that's okay, David.
Yes.
Just sort of start there. So you really can download PulsePoint AED on whatever platform you use and start building your community registry, going to your public places, talking to your school district, talking to your local municipality. You know, a lot of times the municipal governments know where their AEDs are. Schools usually know where their AEDs are. So there's some known locations where you can get started. So there's the easy ones, the lower hanging fruits of where the AEDs are, to the harder ones. But that's where we reach out with with marketing campaigns, outreach campaigns to get more. So we would help you with that. And again, there's no cost associated with any of that. You would just, you could send us a note at info@pulsepoint.org, and we have a whole team that does nothing except help communities build their registries. Now, at the same time, we would want to look at that CAD environment and see, are you using priority dispatch? Are you using a CAD that maybe we do have an interface to? We've been at this for 10 years. We're in one station, Indian reservation, fire departments, to the largest dispatch centers in the country. But we have that complete range. And there are only so many dispatch systems out there. So even if you're small, you're using one of the dozen or so dispatch systems that exist today in most cases. So definitely let us look at that and do a little exploration with you and see what those options are. We deal with small cities, rural communities all over the place.
That's great news. So you're saying just start. I like it.
You can just start. You really can. You can have 10 AEDs tomorrow. And I'll tell you one other advantage. Every AED you add this month, you're in a contest to win $500. And if you enter a lot in your community because you haven't even started, you have a chance for your community to win $5,000 worth of AEDs just during Sudden Cardiac Arrest Month, Awareness Month, which is this October. You can do that the rest of the month. So maybe a little extra incentive to get your friends and neighbors to do that too. And we have all kinds of strategy with using Boy Scouts and there's all kinds of strategies of who can help do this, but you can get started today and you can make headway immediately. Just reach out to us. Let us help you.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And so everyone, please know that after all of these webinars, you are forwarded an email with information about HeartSafe communities, about the things that we discuss, and then, specifics related to today's webinar. I believe they also include a link to the library of all of the past webinars. And, you can listen to these on the go and so on and so forth. So this has been extraordinary. Please share your feedback with us. Do you find these useful? Are they enjoyable? What haven't you heard enough about? What topics haven't we even considered? These champion webinars are intended to help you, move your survival needle locally, right? We know that cardiac arrest doesn't discriminate, large urban centers, small rural communities, everything in between. A vast amount of these strategies lend themselves to communities of all sizes. But, without your feedback, we don't get really an idea of how we can better serve you, because we're all moving towards the same goal of improving survival. And, particularly in smaller communities, we know that we're talking about, very often, our direct family members, our neighbors, people are very well known to us. So I appreciate everyone's participation. I'm incredibly grateful to Rich for coming on the show today. and on behalf of the Citizen CPR Foundation,
Thank
our
you.
board of directors and our partnership council, thank you very much. I do know that Rich has to duck out and go to yet another virtual meeting, and he needs to go now. So
Hey,
I'll say, see you
thanks, David.
later.
Thank
See
you.
later,
Please
Rich.
feel free to share my contact information. Anybody has any questions, follow up with me directly. Thanks,
Yeah.
David. Really do appreciate the opportunity today.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Right. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to try to play this video and know that, you know, this isn't, don't freak out like, oh, how can I get in touch with these people? We're going to make it very easy for you in the follow-up email. So let me just look here. Everything's good. Okay, here we go. We're going to try now. This is going to be a big stretch now for me to be able to share a YouTube video, but let me see what we can do here. Let's see. No. And I'm not going to be able to do it. So we will include it in your follow-up email. I hope that you enjoy it. We are at 5:01 p.m. So that brings our webinar to its conclusion. Again, on behalf of the Citizen CPR Foundation, we are very grateful for all of the work that each of you do to improve survival from sudden cardiac arrest in your own communities and beyond. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Be on the lookout for your follow-up email with resources. And I hope you have a fantastic remainder of your day. Until we speak again, take care and ciao.